For anyone grappling with really deep-seated challenges, maybe something like addiction, it can honestly feel like your own brain is working against you. Like it's this enemy inside, just hardwired for self-sabotage, always pulling you back.
Yeah, it really can feel that way, like you're fighting your own wiring.
Exactly. But what if, and this is what we're diving into today, what if that same brain could actually be your biggest ally in getting better? What if it's capable of profound change, not despite its wiring, but actually because of it?
That's the core question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because the old story, the one a lot of us heard, is that the addicted brain is somehow, permanently broken,
Yeah.
fixed, no going back.
Right, like damaged goods.
Exactly. And that's such a disempowering idea, frankly.
Yeah.
So today, we're doing a deep dive into this fascinating world of neuroplasticity and the brain's reward system. Our mission, looking at some really interesting sources of neuroscience, psychology, habit formation stuff, is to completely flip that script, to shift from thinking broken brain to understanding it as an incredibly changeable brain. It's alive, it's adaptable, constantly reshaping itself with everything you do.
Yeah, we've got a stack of sources here that honestly reveal some surprising science behind our habits, how they form, why they stick, and crucially, our amazing capacity to change them. So get ready, because this isn't just theory. It could really change how you think about your own brain. It's like a blueprint for transformation that's already kind of built in. Okay, let's start with the absolute foundation for all of this idea of the brain's flexibility. What exactly is neuroplasticity?
Right. It's the bedrock concept. So neuroplasticity, in simple terms, is just the brain's incredible ability, and it lasts your whole life to reorganize itself. It does this by forming new connections between neurons, strengthening the ones it uses a lot, and even pruning away connections that aren't really needed anymore.
So it's not like concrete that sets in your 20s. It's more like clay, always malleable.
Exactly like clay. Or maybe think of it like a garden. You're constantly planting new things, weeding out others, strengthening the plants you water. It's a dynamic landscape inside your head. It's constantly building new roads, widening the busy ones, letting old paths fade if you stop using them, all based on how you, use your brain.
Okay, that makes sense. And there's real science behind this, right? It's not just a nice metaphor.
Oh, absolutely. It's a measurable biological process. The kind of catchy phrase you hear is, neurons that fire together wire together.
I've heard that one.
Yeah, and it sounds simple, but it's incredibly profound. It's the basis of how we learn, how we form memories, how we get good at things. Our sources, atomic habits, goes into this, explained it as Hebb's law. Basically, it's the strengthening of connections between neurons based on recent patterns of activity.
Yeah.
So imagine these little electrical signals zipping between brain cells every time they fire in a specific sequence, like when you learn a new dance step or react to stress in a certain way. The connection between those specific neurons gets a little bit stronger, just a tiny bit.
Okay.
But with repetition, cell-to-cell signaling improves and the neural connections tighten. That pathway becomes more efficient, faster, easier to travel down next time. Neuroscientists have a term for this long-term potentiation. Fancy phrase, but it just means those connections, those synapses are durably enhanced. They get stronger for the long haul.
Wow. So every time I practice guitar, or unfortunately, every time someone repeats a pattern tied to addiction.
You're physically sculpting your brain, connection by connection, strengthening that specific pathway.
That's huge. It means we're not just stuck. That flexibility is key, not just for how habits form, but for how they can be unformed or changed.
Precisely. It shifts the whole narrative. It's not a broken brain. It's an incredibly changeable brain.
That's
it's adaptable. That gives us immense power, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, so if the brain is changeable like that, how do habits actually form in the first place? Why do we develop these automatic routines?
Well, it comes down to efficiency, really.
Yeah.
Habits are basically mental shortcuts learned from experience. Think of them as saved programs. Your brain remembers the steps you took last time to solve a problem, like feeling bored or stressed. And when that problem pops up again, bam, it runs the program automatically.
Like a macro on a computer. Click
Yeah.
one button and it does a whole sequence.
Exactly like a macro. And the reason the brain does this, its primary goal in remembering the past, isn't just reminiscing. It's intensely practical to better predict what will work in the future.
Makes sense. Learn from experience.
Right. But here's the catch. Our conscious mind, the part that thinks and plans, it's like a bottleneck. It can only handle so much at once. So to save that precious mental energy, that conscious attention, the brain is always trying to pawn off tasks to the non-conscious mind to do automatically.
Ah, so it delegates routine stuff.
Precisely. That's how habits reduce cognitive load. Think of your conscious brain like having very limited RAM on a computer. Every time you have to consciously decide how to brush your teeth or which route to take to work, it uses up that RAM. Habits automate those things. They free up your mental bandwidth for harder problems, new learning.
It's actually a pretty brilliant system for managing things, but I can see the downside coming.
Yeah, it's brilliant until the automated shortcut leads somewhere you don't want to go. And this whole automation process follows a pattern, the habit loop.
Okay, the habit loop, what are the steps?
4 steps. First, there's the cue. This is the trigger. Could be anything, a time of day, a place, an emotion, seeing a particular thing.
Like seeing the coffee machine in the morning.
Exactly. Or feeling stressed after a meeting. That cue is the first indication that we're close to a reward. And it naturally leads to step 2, the craving. The craving is the engine. It's the motivational force behind every habit. If you don't want the outcome, you won't act.
Okay, cue triggers a craving, and the craving is for the habit itself, like I crave coffee.
This is where it gets really interesting. It's a crucial point from our sources. What you crave is not the habit itself, but the change in state it delivers.
Say more about that. That feels important.
It's huge. You don't really crave the act of smoking. You crave the stress relief, right? Or the focus it seems to provide. You don't crave brushing your teeth. You crave the feeling of a clean mouth. You don't crave turning on the TV. You crave the entertainment, the escape from boredom.
So the habit is just the vehicle to get to the feeling.
Precisely. Every craving is linked to a desire to change your internal state. Maybe you want to feel less anxious or more energized or less bored or more connected.
Wow, understanding that changes everything. Because if you know the state you're chasing,
You can find healthier ways to get there. Instead of just fighting the habit, don't smoke, you ask, how else can I get stress relief? It reframes the whole challenge.
that's a powerful shift. Okay, so cue, craving. What's next?
Then comes the response, which is the actual habit itself, smoking the cigarette, turning on the TV, lashing out in anger. And finally, step 4 is the reward. The reward satisfies the craving, at least temporarily, and teaches your brain that this loop is worth remembering for the future.
That worked. Let's do it again next time.
And the cycle repeats, getting stronger each time.
Exactly. The loop becomes more automatic, more ingrained.
So how does this perfectly normal, efficiency-driven system get, well, hijacked in addiction? How does it become this super highway that seems impossible to get off?
Well, our sources point out that the very mechanisms designed to motivate us towards rewards can sometimes go haywire. They can paradoxically dampen other motivations and set it loose, leading to things like cheating, addiction, and dangerously myopic thinking.
Myopic thinking. Like tunnel vision. Exactly. The system becomes so focused on one powerful reward that it essentially overrides everything else. It creates this intense focus, ignoring long-term costs for short-term gain.
And dopamine is a big player here, right?
Huge player. There's this fascinating kind of accidental discovery back in 1954. James Olds and Peter Milner, neuroscientists, were trying to stimulate a part of the rat brain involved in arousal. But they missed slightly, and the electrodes landed near the nucleus accumbens, or NAAC. This area turned out to be a major pleasure center.
Okay, so what happened?
When they let the rats press a lever to stimulate this area, they just kept pressing it nonstop. They became, as the source says, transfixed by their bliss. They completely lost interest in food, water, mating, sleep. They would literally press the lever until they died of thirst or exhaustion.
Oh my God, that's terrifying.
It is. It's a stark illustration of how the brain can get too good at pushing its own buttons. It shows how a powerful, immediate reward can completely hijack the brain's priorities, creating that superhighway that bypasses all the normal checks and balances for survival.
And over time, with repeated activation of that pathway,
The cues that trigger the craving become so common that they are essentially invisible. Think about it, the subtle feeling of stress, the time of day, walking past a certain place, they trigger the urge automatically. Our responses become deeply encoded, almost like breathing. The urge to act comes from nowhere, it feels like, because the whole sequence is running unconsciously.
which is why just saying stop is so hard, you don't even realize what's triggering it half the time.
Exactly. That's why our sources stress that we must begin the process of behavior change with awareness. You have to bring the unconscious into the light. Remember that quote from Carl Jung? Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. If you don't see the strings, you think you're choosing freely, even when you're being pulled by these deep patterns.
That resonates. And it gets even deeper when you factor in our early emotional wiring, right? The amygdala.
Absolutely. The amygdala, think of it as the brain's smoke detector or alarm system. It matures really early, in infancy, and it stores these rough, wordless blueprints for emotional life. These are our earliest emotional memories, formed before we have language to describe them.
Before we can even talk about what happened.
Exactly. So later in life, a seemingly random cue, a certain look, a tone of voice, maybe even a smell, can trigger those early nonverbal memories. And that can lead to these intense emotional outbursts or feelings, terror, rage, helplessness that we can't articulate. We feel it powerfully, but we don't know why because the memory itself is pre-verbal.
Wow. And this connects directly to trauma, doesn't it?
Profoundly. Trauma, as one source, Buddy Keeps the Score puts it, is not just an event that took place sometime in the past, it's also the imprint left by that experience on mind, brain, and body. It fundamentally reorganizes how the brain manages perceptions. For someone who's experienced trauma, their smoke detector, the amygdala, gets rewired. It starts interpreting even safe situations as harbingers of life-threatening danger.
So they're living in a state of constant high alert, even if the danger is long gone.
Yes, their bodies literally re-experience terror, rage, and helplessness. Racing heart, shallow breath, muscle tension, maybe dissociation or shutdown. It's happening now physically in response to triggers that might seem minor to others. And because this memory is often held in the body, non-verbally, it can be enormously difficult to organize one's traumatic experiences into a coherent account. The body remembers vividly, even when the conscious mind struggles to piece it together. Trauma isn't just a bad memory, it's a physical state.
That helps explain why talking about it can be so hard, or why sometimes people don't even consciously remember the details, but their body is clearly reacting.
Exactly, and it highlights the sheer complexity inside us. Jung's analogy, referenced in our sources, is so apt. The psyche isn't neat and tidy, it's a boiling cauldron of contradictory impulses, inhibitions, and effects.
A boiling cauldron. That's a vivid image.
Isn't it? Our conscious intentions, our desire to change, are continually disturbed and thwarted by unconscious intrusions whose causes are at first strange to us. We want to go one way, but these powerful, often wordless urges or intense emotional reactions pull us another way. It's not about weak willpower. It's about navigating this incredibly complex, deeply wired inner landscape.
Okay, so that paints a picture of how deep these patterns can run, how the brain gets wired for struggle sometimes. But the flip side, the hopeful part, is that this same wiring capacity can be used for healing, right?
Exactly. After hearing all that about superhighways, hijacked reward systems, boiling cauldrons, it's easy to feel a bit, well, stuck. Like, how could anyone possibly change something so deeply wired?
Yeah, it can sound pretty daunting.
But this is where the core message of neuroplasticity really shines. This is the empowering part, the principle of the changeable brain. One of our sources, Mindset, puts it so powerfully yet simply. Mindsets are just beliefs. They're powerful beliefs, but they're just something in your mind, and you can change your mind.
You can change your mind. It sounds almost too simple, but it's foundational, isn't it?
It's everything. Because if you believe deep down that change is possible, that your brain isn't fixed, then you open the door to actually doing the work of rewiring.
This links to that idea of a fixed versus a growth mindset, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That distinction is crucial, especially here. With a fixed mindset, if you struggle, if you hit a setback, maybe a relapse in recovery, you think, see, I can't do this. I'm just not strong enough. This is just who I am. Effort feels like proof of failure.
Because if you were naturally good at it, it wouldn't be hard.
Right. But with a growth mindset, the whole perspective flips. Effort is what makes you smart or talented. Challenges aren't threats. They're opportunities to learn and get stronger. People with this mindset, they don't just seek challenge, they thrive on it. They understand that struggling is the process of building new skills, forging those new neural pathways. Believing you can develop is the first step to actually developing.
So shifting that core belief about whether change is even possible for you is step one.
Definitely. And then the way you approach change matters immensely. Our sources strongly suggest the most effective way isn't just focusing on the outcome like I want to quit X. Instead, you focus on who you wish to become. It's about building identity-based habits. Identity-based habits. Okay, what does that mean in practice?
It means recognizing that your identity emerges out of your habits. Every action you take is like casting a vote. Think about it. Every time you choose water over soda, you're casting a vote for, I am a healthy person. Every time you practice mindfulness for 2 minutes, you're voting for, I am someone who prioritizes calm.
So it's not just about doing things, it's about becoming someone.
Exactly. Each tiny action, repeated consistently, reinforces that new identity. It's not just behavior change, it's a deeper transformation. Some texts call it metanoia, but a kind of spiritual metamorphosis, an enlarged vision of who you can be. You're literally sculpting your future self and your brain with every choice.
Okay, I love that idea of casting votes. It makes small actions feel much more significant. But how do we actually build those new habits, cast those votes consistently? Is there a practical framework?
Yes, and Atomic Habits lays out a really clear, actionable framework. The 4 laws of behavior change. These aren't just for building good habits. Their inversions also help break bad ones. They leverage neuroplasticity.
All right, let's break them down. What's the first law?
The first law is make it obvious. And this starts with awareness. Remember how we said habits become automatic, unconscious?
Right, you don't even notice them.
So before you can change anything, you have to get a handle on our current ones. Shine a light on them. Because once a habit is firmly rooted, it is mostly non-conscious and automatic. Goes straight back to that Jung quote. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. You need to see the pattern before you can change it. Maybe just track your behavior for a day. What triggers what?
Okay, awareness first. Then how do you make a new good habit obvious?
Use really clear cues and plans. One great technique is implementation intentions. Don't just say, I'll exercise more. Be specific. I will behavior. Do 15 minutes of yoga at time. 7 a.m. in location. The living room.
The who, what, when, where.
Exactly. That specificity is important. It removes ambiguity. Another one is habit stacking. Link your new habit to an existing one. After I current habit, pour my morning coffee. I will new habit, take my vitamins. Or after I put my keys down when I get home, I will change into my workout clothes.
So you piggyback the new habit onto something you already do automatically.
Precisely. It makes the cue for the new habit super obvious because it's tied to an established routine.
And what about the environment? Does that play a role in making things obvious?
A massive role. You need to actively design your environment. Make the cues for your good habits unavoidable, obvious, and visible. Want to practice guitar more? Don't leave it in the case in the closet. Put it on a stand in the middle of your living room. Want to drink more water? Keep a water bottle right there on your desk.
And the flip side for bad habits?
You apply the inversion. Make it invisible. Reduce exposure to the cues that trigger bad habits. If scrolling your phone wastes time, maybe leave it in another room when you need to focus. If you eat junk food mindlessly while watching TV, don't keep it in the house, or at least put it somewhere inconvenient like a high shelf in the garage.
Make it harder to get to.
Exactly. The core idea is friction. The greater the friction, the less likely the habit. Make the bad habit inconvenient and the good habit the easy, obvious choice. Okay, that brings us to the second law. Make it attractive.
Right, because just being obvious isn't always enough if it feels like a chore.
Precisely. This ties back to cravings. Remember, every craving is linked to a desire to change your internal state. So to make a good habit attractive, you need to link it to a positive feeling or something you already enjoy.
Like temptation bundling.
Exactly. That's a great strategy. Maybe you only get to watch your favorite guilty pleasure show while you're on the exercise bike, or you listen to an amazing podcast only while you're doing chores. You pair something you want to do with something you need to do. It makes the need to do part more appealing.
That makes sense. What else makes a habit attractive?
Social influence is huge. We're tribal creatures, right? We naturally imitate the habits of people we like, people we admire, people in our group.
Like how you start talking like your friends or picking up their mannerisms?
Exactly. So if you want to adopt healthier habits, surround yourself with people who already live that way. Join a running club, a recovery support group, a book club, whatever aligns with the identity you want to build. Seeing others model the behavior makes it seem more normal, more achievable, and frankly, more attractive. We want to belong.
Okay. Obvious, attractive. What's the third law?
The third law is make it easy. This one might seem surprising, but it's critical for getting started.
Easy. Shouldn't we be pushing ourselves?
Eventually, yes, but initially. The key is to start with repetition, not perfection. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need to show up and do it, even badly. The goal is to automate the behavior, build a pathway. You just need to get your reps in. Each repetition, even a tiny one, strengthens that neural connection. It's about consistency first, intensity later.
This sounds like where that 2-minute rule comes in handy.
Absolutely. The 2-minute rule is brilliant. It's better to do less than you hoped than to do nothing at all. Whatever habit you want to build, scale it down so it takes 2 minutes or less. Want to read more, read 1 page. Want to meditate, meditate for 1 minute. Want to run a marathon, Start by just putting on your running shoes.
Just the very first step.
Yes, because doing that tiny action still casts a vote for your new identity. You're becoming the type of person who reads, who meditates, who runs. It lowers the barrier to starting so much that it's almost impossible not to do it. It builds momentum.
And making it easy also involves setting up the environment.
Right?
Priming it.
Definitely. You want to make the good habit the path of least resistance. Reduce the friction. Lay out your workout clothes the night before. Chop vegetables for healthy meals on Sunday. Put your journal and pen on your bedside table. Set up your workspace so focusing is easy. Make the next action effortless.
So you're removing obstacles before they even appear?
Precisely. You're engineering ease into the process.
You also mentioned something about the Goldilocks zone earlier. How does that fit with making it easy?
Ah, yes. That's about maintaining the habit once you started. To stay motivated, the task needs to be just manageable difficulty. Not too easy because you'll get bored. Not too hard because you'll get frustrated and quit.
Like finding the right level in a video game.
Perfect analogy. You want it challenging enough to keep you engaged, roughly 4% beyond your current skill level, according to some research. When you hit that sweet spot, you can enter a flow state, totally immersed, losing track of time, finding the activity itself rewarding. That makes it much easier to stick with it long term because it feels good. And that leads perfectly into the fourth and final law. Make it satisfying.
Satisfying. Why is that so important?
Because our brains are fundamentally wired for immediate gratification. Evolutionarily, immediate rewards over delayed rewards was a survival strategy. Finding food now mattered more than planning for next winter.
So we're biased towards what feels good right away.
Exactly. And that's the cardinal rule of behavior change. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. The problem is many good habits like exercise, saving money, recovery have delayed rewards. The payoff is way down the line. But many bad habits offer instant gratification, the sugar rush, the nicotine hit, the escape.
So the bad habits have an unfair advantage in the short term. How do we fix that?
We need to find a way to make the good habits immediately satisfying. You need to feel immediately successful, even if it's in a small way. Think about simple things. The minty fresh feeling after brushing your teeth, that's an immediate reward. Or seeing the number go up in your savings app right after you transfer money.
Little hits of pleasure or success.
Exactly. Find ways to give yourself immediate positive feedback. Maybe cross something off a list with a flourish. Or use a habit tracker and enjoy putting that X on the calendar. Or simply pause and acknowledge, yes, I did it, good job. Give your brain that little dopamine hit for doing the right thing.
That connects to the idea of tracking progress, right?
Absolutely. Because the most effective form of motivation is progress. Seeing that you're actually moving forward, even slowly, is incredibly motivating. Habit tracking, whether it's an app, a journal, marbles in a jar, provides visual proof of your success. It creates these small wins that feed your desire. It builds momentum, and honestly, it can become almost addictive in a positive way. Plus, it keeps you honest. You can't fool yourself if the tracker is blank.
These 4 laws seem like a really powerful toolkit for individual change. But what about the broader context, like relationships and our internal emotional state? How do they fit into rewiring?
They are absolutely crucial. You can't really separate individual habit change from your relationships and your capacity for self-regulation. They're deeply intertwined. A key concept here comes from attachment theory. The idea of a secure base. Basically, having someone in your life, a partner, a close friend, even a therapist who is reliably supportive, creates a foundation of safety.
Like a safe harbor.
Exactly. When you feel that sense of security, that someone has your back, it allows you to take risks, be creative, and pursue our dreams. You're more willing to explore, to try new things, even to fail, because you know you have that safe place to return to.
And if you don't feel secure,
then a lot of your mental and emotional energy gets tied up in anxiety, managing relationship stress, seeking reassurance. It's really hard to focus on deep personal change, like recovery, if your primary connections feel unstable or threatening. Feeling safe is fundamental to self-regulation and growth.
that makes perfect sense. And good communication must be key to building that security.
Absolutely critical. Our sources highlight the power of expressing your needs and expectations to your partner in a direct, non-accusatory manner. It's an incredibly powerful tool. Using those I statements, I feel worried when I don't hear from you because I imagine something bad happened, and I need reassurance. Rather than blaming, you never call, that can strengthen the bond.
Mm-hmm.
It also helps you avoid protest behavior, those indirect things people do when they feel insecure but can't ask directly, like withdrawing, picking fights, making demands. Effective communication builds trust and safety, which are essential for healing.
Learning to communicate better is like rewiring relationship habits.
Definitely. And this all ties into emotional self-regulation, our ability to manage our own feelings. Our sources talk about brain sculpting here. The habits of emotional management that are repeated over and over again during childhood and the teenage years literally help mold this circuitry. How we learn to soothe ourselves, handle frustration, delay gratification. Those early experiences shape our emotional pathways through synaptic sculpting.
So childhood is a really critical time for this wiring.
It is a crucial window of opportunity. But, and this is the hopeful part, thanks to neuroplasticity, it's not the only window. Change is still absolutely possible later in life. We can learn new ways to regulate our emotions, build stronger internal coping mechanisms as adults. The brain remains adaptable.
Okay, so how can we actively promote this rewiring, especially if we're dealing with deeper issues like trauma or addiction? Are there specific therapies or practices?
Yes, several interventions leverage this brain plasticity. One that comes up strongly, especially in the body keeps the score, is practices like yoga and mindful breathing. It mentions studies where even just 10 weeks of yoga significantly reduced PTSD symptoms in people who hadn't responded to any other treatment.
Wow. Why is yoga so effective?
Because it directly addresses the body's experience. Learning how to breathe calmly and remaining in a state of relative physical relaxation, even while accessing painful memories, is an essential tool for recovery. Deep, slow breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's brake, calming that fight-or-flight response. Yoga combines this with mindful movement, helping people reconnect with and feel safer in their bodies, which is often where trauma is held.
So it helps regulate the nervous system directly? What about something like neurofeedback? That sounds very techy.
It is a bit techy, but it's fascinating. It can be really helpful for people who are highly anxious, hyper-aroused, or shut down, making it hard to focus. Essentially, you get real-time feedback on your own brainwave activity, maybe through a game on a screen. You see your brain patterns, and you learn through practice and guidance to shift those patterns towards a calmer, more focused state.
So you're learning to consciously influence your brainwaves.
Exactly. It helps people move from feeling helpless or blaming themselves, why can't I calm down, to understanding, okay, this is what my brain is doing, and here's how I can learn to shift it. It fosters a real sense of agency over internal states. It's like learning to drive your own brain.
That's incredible. Are there other key elements for recovery mentioned?
Yes, cultivating sensory awareness is crucial, particularly for trauma survivors. Often, as a coping mechanism, people learn to numb themselves, to ignore their gut feelings, and disconnect from body sensations.
Because feeling those sensations was too overwhelming.
Precisely. But healing requires reconnecting, learning to tolerate their sensations, befriend their inner experiences, and cultivate new action patterns. This might involve simple practices like noticing the feeling of your feet on the floor, really tasting your food, or doing mindful body scans. It's about slowly, safely rebuilding that connection between mind and body, learning to trust internal signals again.
It sounds like becoming embodied again.
That's a great way to put it. And amidst all this work, the rewiring, the facing of difficult feelings, there's a really hopeful idea that emerges from the sources. It's the concept of the self. The idea is that, especially in trauma survivors, beneath the surface of the protective parts, there exists an undamaged essence, a self that is confident, curious, and calm.
An undamaged core, even after everything.
Yes, it's not something you have to build. It's already there, inherent, often hidden, protected, but present. And when enough safety is established through therapy, relationships, self-regulation, this self can spontaneously emerge to guide the healing. It's like an inner wisdom, a core of wholeness that was never truly broken.
That's a profoundly hopeful thought. That deep down, there's a part of us that knows the way.
It is. And this whole journey, facing the inner chaos, dissolving old patterns, building new ways of being, reconnecting with that core self, it really echoes the structure of the ancient myth of the hero. Maps of Meaning, for instance, talks about how this myth assumes and human experience can be improved by voluntary alteration in individual human attitude and action.
So the hero's journey is really about inner transformation.
Absolutely. The hero is anyone willing to step into the unknown, the creative and destructive feminine, in mythological terms, representing all that's unexplored and potentially overwhelming within us and in the world. Facing that unknown, confronting those dragons, whether they're addiction, trauma, or limiting beliefs, and then consciously rebuilding, that's the heroic act. It's about voluntarily engaging with the chaos to create a new, more meaningful order in your life.
Wow. Okay, so after exploring all of that, the brain's wiring, the potential for change, the practical steps, the deeper emotional work, let's bring it back to something really concrete for everyone listening. We get a practical takeaway, right?
Absolutely. Time to put some of this into action.
So here's your mission for this week, if you choose to accept it. Pick one small, new, healthy behavior. I mean really small, like ridiculously small.
So small you almost can't fail.
Exactly. Maybe it's literally 1 minute of mindful breathing when you wake up, just sitting and noticing your breath for 60 seconds.
Or maybe it's doing 2 push-ups. Or drinking 1 glass of water before your coffee.
Or walking just around your house once during a break. Or writing down one thing you're grateful for before bed. Truly tiny.
Pick that one tiny thing.
Okay, so you've picked your tiny habit. Now here's the crucial part, linking back to everything we've discussed.
Commit to practicing this one behavior consistently, every single day, for just this next week. 7 days.
And the emphasis is on consistency, not intensity or perfection. Don't worry if you feel like it. Don't worry if it feels silly or too small. Just do it.
Remember that quote. It's better to do less than you hoped than to do nothing at all. Showing up is the win here. Get the repetition in.
And as you do this tiny action each day, really understand what you're doing on a deeper level.
You're not just drinking water or doing 2 push-ups. You are physically changing your brain.
With every single repetition, you are casting a vote for the type of person you wish to become. You're strengthening that new neural pathway. You're making it a little wider, a little easier to travel next time.
You are quite literally hardwiring yourself for healing, for growth, for that new identity, one tiny rep at a time.
So embrace the smallness. Focus on the consistency and know that you are actively sculpting a more resourceful, resilient brain.
You know, reflecting on our conversation, the big takeaway for me is just how fundamentally hopeful this science is. We've seen that the brain isn't this fixed, static thing, maybe broken by past experiences.
Right, it's not doomed to just repeat old patterns forever.
Exactly. It's this living, dynamic, constantly changing landscape. Neuroplasticity means our capacity for self-direction, for growth, for healing. It's not just wishful thinking. It's a biological reality.
It's hardwired within us.
Yeah.
The ability to change is literally part of the brain's design.
It really is. This deep dive looking at habits, mindset, trauma, recovery, it all points back to this inherent ability we have to change, to heal, to become the person we aspire to be.
And we've talked a lot today about how our actions, our behaviors physically reshape the brain, how doing things differently creates those new pathways. But there's this whole other layer, isn't there? The emotional dimension, how we feel through this process.
Absolutely. Because changing habits, especially deep ones, isn't just mechanical. It brings up a lot of feelings, resistance, fear, grief, maybe even excitement.
Right. So while we've laid the groundwork for the how-to of rewiring through action, next time we're going to dive into that emotional landscape. How understanding and navigating our feelings is maybe the key to unlocking even deeper, more lasting change and well-being.
Yeah, moving beyond just changing what we do to really exploring how we can transform how we feel. That's going to be fascinating.